from Englewood writes in and says, I'm a few years from retirement. I'm debt-free except for my mortgage. Good work. Way to go, Pam. Way to go. Actually, our listening audience should have sounded off, but they were asleep for a second. She says her interest rate on her mortgage is really low, right around 3%. She says she has enough in savings to pay off the mortgage, but she's not sure if this is the right move. So she's wondering what she should consider deciding to pay off her house or keep the money invested.
I love this question. I have to tell you right off the bat, Pam, this is not a cut or dry answer, unfortunately. It really comes down to looking at the financial piece and the emotional piece. Low interest, we see a lot of people who are like, oh, I've got this 3% mortgage. What should we do? And 3% is, man, that's pretty cheap, right? That's like free money. So here's the thing. I think sometimes it really does come down to the feeling that it would give you, because we could crunch numbers all day about how much more you could potentially make in an investment. But on the flip side, is that investment risky? Could you potentially lose money in that? And also there's just some people that are like, I know that the interest rate is so low, but man, it would just be such a weight lifted off of my shoulders. And that's what I want. And so that's, again, where we would sit down with you and really pick your brain about those things, because there's not a right or wrong answer there. It really would be better if we could see that full picture, understand your income, understand your feelings on all of that, some of your goals, and how that all aligns with your life. So I love that you're asking this question, though, because that tells me that the wheels are turning. But come in and talk to us so we can get a little deeper with you.
Absolutely. And Pam, the number to call is 970-446-1234, although she already reached out. So Carrie and the team behind the scenes are getting it all set up. And in fact, we're making sure when you do give us a question on the show, we're going to get you a copy of Peace Out, Retire into Your Go-Go Years. It's just over my right shoulder as well if you're watching the video stream, because, well, it's the book of the year. And we're going to have another one coming before long, but just know that Josh and Alicia would love to give you the copy of their book, Peace Out, Retire into Your Go-Go Years. And you can call and request it at 970-446-1234. All right, Josh. Stephen from Lafayette says he and his wife have substantial retirement accounts. They've heard about Roth conversions by listening to the show. And obviously, it pops up on the internet all the time about Roth conversion and that. And so they know that they need to try and create some tax-free income for their retirement life. And all of it sounds great, but they know it does mean paying taxes right now because they've heard you talk about it on the show. So they're wondering how you figure out if a Roth conversion makes sense in their situation.
Yeah, this is also a great question, Stephen. Thanks so much for listening and for the question. So is a Roth conversion right for me? Big question for a lot of people. I think it really kind of comes down to understanding your future tax liability, also determining what's your age, what's your income. So there's a lot of calculations that go into Roth conversions. I think one of the bigger questions we always ask our families too is, what are your feelings about taxes in the future? Do you think your taxes are going to go up in the future, or do you think they're going to go down? Obviously, if you guys have listened to the show long enough, you know what camp I'm in. You look at just kind of what's happening with government spending. I think that also kind of, gives us a little bit of an answer in the future. But a lot of times we want to look at, hey, how much time do you have? Where's your income at now? And what does that mean in terms of conversions? Because we really want to look at it kind of through this lens of, say, when do you have to take RMDs? Either 73 or 75. And we want to look at, hey, based on your income needs, so kind of your budget measure, what do you need in terms of income? And how does that RMD translate to that? Because a lot of times we might sit down with the family and they might have a bundle of money in IRAs and they go, hey, I want to convert all this to Roth. And then we come back and look at kind of some of their spending and we say, okay, it doesn't necessarily make sense for you to convert at all, but here's some meaningful conversions we can make along the way. That's going to give you some diversification in terms of taxation on your retirement assets, but then it's also going to give you that ability to reduce your taxes in the future. So it kind of depends on what the intent is. Also, leaving those assets to, say, your non-spouse beneficiary, your kids, going to be much more tax efficient from them. So it kind of depends on what the goals and objectives are with that. But then we'd want to look at determining a lot of other things to make sure, hey, this is a good fit. And how much do we want to convert? Because at the end of the day, you got to cut a check to the IRS. So I think that's going to make a primary determination for a lot of families on how much they want to convert.
Those dadgum goals and objectives always get in the way.
Always. It's complicated.
It's complicated. 970-446-1234. Stephen, thanks so much for your question. All right, Alicia. Gary in Thornton says he's been retired for 2 years and he's bored out of his mind. I know you've never heard this before. He says he misses the structure of the social interaction that he had at his old job. And he says he doesn't need the money, but he's thinking about going back to work part-time or maybe starting some kind of consulting gig with his previous profession. But he wonders about the financial implications and taxes and what unretiring might look like. So how do you help somebody when they say just that? I'm bored out of my mind. Clearly, they didn't have a plan.
Right. And Gary, first of all, I love your honesty. I think this is something that people don't talk about enough. How much of a shift, retirement is not just the financial shift. It really is that life shift, and so when you're really talking about, oh my gosh, I'm bored, should I go back to work? That is a really healthy thing to recognize that, like, hey, I miss the camaraderie. I miss the social piece. And hey, the money wasn't bad either or whatever. But a lot of times people who are unretiring, it usually doesn't have to do with the money. It has to do with that social piece and more kind of purpose-driven type conversations. But when we really talk to people who like yourself, Gary, who are saying, man, I think I need to go back to work because I'm bored. There are a few things that we really look at from the financial standpoint. First of all, did you start Social Security? And does that affect or impact your Social Security? Because if you started taking that early, chances are that could impact that. The other thing is, how is that going to change your tax situation? And, how much are you looking to make from a financial standpoint? And so kind of digging into that, have you done other financial planning from the maybe Roth conversions? Just, those details matter when we're talking about some of the financial piece, the tax piece. And ultimately, how does it affect your overall plan? Sounds like maybe we need to work on a plan, because this is something that I feel like if you had a true full-blown plan, this would have been discussed a ton, because, when we're talking about retirement planning, it is not just about the financial piece. It goes so much deeper than that. We really do talk about, what are you going to retire to? What is your purpose? What is your structure? What are your connections going to be? And sometimes that isn't just work, right? And I think that's where we kind of can dig into that too, where immediately a lot of people are like, well, I'll just go back to work. Well, are you sure you want to do that? Maybe there's something else that you're passionate about, or maybe you want to give back to the community and do some volunteering. So again, this is something that when you do come in and chat with us, that we're going to be talking in depth about this, because it is one of our favorites is to talk about the lifestyle piece, because this is what you've worked so hard for. So definitely as important to plan as the financial piece.
Oh, no doubt. And of course, at Lehman Lewis, the word peace is written right across the top of the book, and it stands for the peace process. Now, it's not PIECE, but PEACE for those of not watching along on our YouTube channel. Personal connection, education, action, agreement, creation, and enjoyment. That's the financial piece that Lehman Lewis has with you. All right. Thanks so much, Gary, for your question. Final question of this segment, Josh, is for you. Brenda from Windsor says she wants to leave a meaningful inheritance for her grandkids for their college. She's looked at 529 plans, wondering if there are other ways to set aside money for education. What strategies do you typically see people use when they want to fund their grandkids' college education?
Brenda, thank you so much for the question. Great question. Glad you're thinking ahead. For a long time, 529 plans kind of mixed bag of feelings there for me, just in terms of, for the longest time, if you didn't use it for qualified education purposes, you were either going to transfer it to a sibling, a cousin, someone like that, or you're going to just withdraw it as a taxable distribution sometime down the road. And I think there's probably billions of assets in unused 529 plans. What I like about that, though, is now you're eligible to actually move that over into a Roth IRA account for that kid. So it actually creates an inheritance if they don't end up maybe going to college or using the full amount. So I think there's a little more flexibility there with 529 plans. But there's a lot of different ways to save for that too, where we've seen some families utilize maybe some life insurance, where they create maybe a beneficiary structure for the grandkids, but have some age requirements in there where if they meet, certain ages, then they can access some of that money. Usually through maybe a trust structure or something like that, or mom and dad are kind of overseeing that, where they'll allow them to use that life insurance death benefit potentially as money for, qualified education expenses, that sort of thing. We also see where people set up a UTMA account, a uniform transfer to minors account, where they're going to be eligible to use that. So maybe they don't necessarily go to college, but they want to go, to some other type of training or maybe start a business. That's going to give them a lot more flexibility there. So I think kind of knowing your grandkids and maybe having an understanding of what's the likelihood they're going to go to college would help drive that. And then know, hey, if there's some unused balance, it could go towards a Roth. That gives you a lot of flexibility, but maybe looking at a couple different sources so that depending on what happens with your grandkids, in terms of higher education, then they're going to have more flexibility to utilize some of those assets.
Awesome questions today. Really appreciate them. Reach out today to the Lehman Lewis team and start the conversation about your retirement income plan. The phone number 970-446-1234. With Alicia and Josh Lewis, I'm Bruce Steinbrock. We've got more Retire Colorado straight ahead.